question. If we work through our presentation, do we have to on our camera? I don't imagine so. I wouldn't think that that's a requirement. I don't believe so. Really, they're more interested in your design. So you're using the design, the PowerPoint software, as a design tool because you want to communicate your design. So what the assignment does is it gives you some situations and it gives you, I think, 4 examples of different potential businesses. And then it asks you to, if you were building out a design, say for a website or something for this business, what would it look like? So what you're using the software for is to explain your design, not to send them a video of yourself. And there's a few different options. So we go, there's also, you could probably use this. This is kind of design software. So this is the one that comes with Google, what have you. Let me just see, can you export it? They want it to be in the format of an MP4. So I'm wondering if you can. So that's a little bit messy. You can do it in PowerPoint. So just kind of show of hands, right, briefly, who has PowerPoint and who doesn't? So I see 2 hands up. What about the rest of you guys? Sue, Aslin, and Abdullah. So pop up your hand if you have PowerPoint. So this is the, this Microsoft software. You do. Very good. Will you raise your hand just so I can see all the hands up together? Because, so rather than typing in the chat. So I see 5 and I see 6. Bailey, you have it. And then I see 2 potentially. I'm just going to take it for granted. So both of you guys have, you can take your hands down now. Thank you for that. I can just see them. So look, I'm going to take it for granted that you have this software. You can either use the web version or the desktop version. And yeah, it's good to have because it allows you to work on it in this kind of format where you can pick a color theme, all that sort of stuff, pick different fonts, different colors, and it just gives you a way to communicate maybe some of your ideas. Let's do a quick recap of the last day and stop me if you have any questions. Now I can see everything on one screen. We did a quick overview of these 8 golden rules. I will let you click through these yourselves, feedback, dialogues. So if you had to summarize these rules, how would you summarize them? See these principles. So why do we bother with these rules or these guiding principles for our interface design? Any ideas? So why bother? Yeah, they are golden rules, but why?
I think it's just to provide a framework so that even new programmers, I guess, can make a very usable system.
Yes, exactly. It gives us a way to work through the problem. So totally correct. It allows us to have conversations with our team and also with the users. And it makes us think about these things because we know that we have to work through these things. And these are the questions we sort of ask ourselves. as we're going through our interface design or whatever it is that we've built. Remember, this could be a product, this could be, a website, this could be an app that we've built for a mobile platform. This gives us a framework to work through the problem in some sort of a way, and hopefully we won't forget anything. All these guiding principles that we can apply to any of the sort of problems that we'll come across. These are similar. These are, guiding principles or laws of perception, and they come from the background or the school of thought of psychology. These are things that we know and that we understand, and there's a lot of research and online materials related to these, and they have been established as being very relevant to the area of human computer interaction and user experience. These again can help you, and you can talk about these, because whatever design I suppose you propose, it's good to be able to talk about it. So if I built a design and it looked something like this, I could talk about some of this, because I can say, look, this design is built on a simplified grid system, and people naturally have a tendency to simplify complexity. So this gives you lots of stuff to write about. Proximity also super important in any design where the elements are grouped together. So these are all things you can reference when you're trying to explain your design. You can say that my design utilizes symmetry. I got maybe some inspiration from the Google homepage because it's naturally symmetrical. All these things. What you're doing is you're learning a language to describe your design, and a way to work through a design problem so that you don't leave things out. So let's use the example of this web page. So they've highlighted 4 separate things that have been considered when the web page is being built. So, you could do something similar. One of the things we're going to look at today is the use of color in designs. So what's the sort of the main colors in this design?
Blue and white.
Blue and white, and photorealistic sort of images. Generally not a lot of kind of styling or decoration on the page. Very easy to read, very clear, those sort of things. Quite a nice looking web page in some ways, real visual clarity, and you can see the blue, the same blue is sort of carried throughout. And these photorealistic images of people, so they're a real image as opposed to something like this. You see quite a lot of these on websites, but this website uses photos and it adds a certain warmth to the website as well. Can you see that? So these are all things that you can talk about in your design, and it provides, I suppose, the background as to why you've made certain design choices. So look, any questions about any of the Gestalt principles or the 8 golden rules? No questions? Let's move on to today then. Color theory. Now, have you all seen this wheel before? This color wheel and how it works. And different colors give us, well, different, it's quite a famous color wheel. You might have seen it in a different form. So you might have seen it look slightly differently, but probably the same. Generally, the lighter colors are at the top. Sometimes it can be reorganized. The wheel can be sort of rotated different ways, but the classic color wheel, or this one that was invented by Isaac Newton way back, so you had 3 main groups. You had primary, you had secondary, and you had tertiary. So, and if you look at the colors down here, so in primary, actually you call them out to me. So what are the primary colors on this wheel? So can anyone call them out to me? Come on, they're marked. You should be able to see
They're
them.
blue, yellow, and red.
Yes. And do you remember when you were in school or when you were a kid and you were painting, how you used to mix the colors together and you could create almost any color from your primary colors? If you mix two primary, which would be blue and yellow, you got green, didn't you? So if I mix this color and this color, I get this color, right? See the way they're marked? So to get this color, I mix the two primaries that are closest to it, which in this case will be yellow and red, right? So do you see how this works? So a color scheme is one of the first elements to communicate the message behind a design, and it works at both like a visual level and a psychological level. And when used correctly, color can reflect the overall look and feel of a business. So now just think of some of the websites you've seen. What are the business colors? Say a business is a serious business like a bank or a government or something like that. What colors do they tend to use? And also colors have different meanings in different cultures, so this might be interesting. If I go into, say, a bank that's quite close to me here, see the colors straight away? Quite serious looking, lots of blues and grays. See? So they tend to have these type of colors. A bank probably doesn't have bright colors. Another business might have, but a bank would tend to be more serious and more sort of muted. And you'll even see that in their logos. Choosing the best combination of colors, it's not a guessing game, and knowing what colors and combinations can save time and help to keep your users connected with the design. In your design, whatever you create, you can talk about the colors and say, these are the choices. You'll generally get a color palette, and it's like this theme where a lot of this stuff is figured out already for you. So some of these, like for example, if you were building an interface for a bank, which of these three color schemes would you pick? Which looks the most like a banking sort of website or interface?
The
Is
blue.
it the top? The blue, completely. Does this look like a bank? Not really. So you can instantly see. So it depends what type of a brand it is. Maybe that would work as well. This, maybe less so. I can't recall seeing many orange sort of banks. Color choice is important. When you select colors for your design or for your theme, go with some of the colors that are already here, because a lot of these choices will be figured out for you, and then you can just add them. So I wouldn't go a million miles with a whole load of crazy color choices. So let's look at the 7 main color schemes. I came across a nice PDF last night. Let me just pop it up. So I'll pop it in the chat for you guys. And it's from a good source, the International UX Design Federation. So have you got that? Have you got the PDF? You got it? Excellent. So I'll pop it up on screen here.
It's working.
I'm not going to go through on my way. If I do a new window, I'm not going to go through every single part of it. Just know that there are different color schemes and different things work together for different reasons. The first one is monochromatic, and that's where you have sort of varying shades of like a single color. The next one then is based on 3 colors. You can see it on the wheel. Complementary colors, which are sort of directly opposite each other on the wheel. You have triadic, where you pick triangles and see that they're equally spaced apart. So if that design was to move a square, the entire triangle would shift. There's different ones, split complementary, square, all these type of things. So I'm not going to go through them all in detail, but you can certainly have a look at them. And just know that, look, there are different approaches to kind of color. Complementary works quite well and split complementary. So I would say work through them and know that there is a lot of background and a lot of research that has happened in relation to color and color choices. Like generally, the top part of the wheel is seen as warm, with the bottom part here, these colors, seen as slightly cooler. So the colors must reflect both the design's goals and the brand's personality. So if you're creating a serious sort of business, you generally go for cooler colors. If you're, creating a kind of fun business, maybe use warmer colors. And it explains it here. So essentially you have three categories: warm, neutral, or cool. So this is the first one, the warm. So remember, these are the top half of the wheel. Yellows, oranges, reds, yellows, those type of things. And they're said to reflect passion, power, happiness, energy. And then you have cool, and they're said to reflect a sense of calmness or stability, which is, I suppose, what a bank would like to try and communicate. And then there's sort of neutral colors that don't really reflect particular emotions. They're more neutral: gray, white, black, browns, that sort of color. Now, how users can react to colors can vary based on their gender, their age, their experience, their cultural background. So, for example, blue is a standard color in Western banking, but some colors can evoke conflicting emotions. So red means good fortune in China, but it's associated with mourning in South Africa and potentially danger in the US. So what would you associate with red? So the color red, when you look at it, what do you associate with it? Fire, very good. Danger, danger. Alert, blood, all those things. Courage, okay, interesting. So, and look, we're all from different parts of the world, and we're all going to associate slightly different things. I think for me, it'd probably be maybe passion or danger or something like that. I'm used to seeing it on as a warning sign or as a traffic light or a pedestrian crossing. So really, usability testing is key, and it helps ensure that color choices work across audiences, because you could use a particular color in your design and then it might be perceived differently from the way you intended it. Very important to go and test your design with different users. And I suppose if you were launching a website and it was targeting different areas of the world, it would be important to go and test with those people, with those demographics. There's a link here as well that goes into quite a bit of detail. Again, from a nice reputable source. There's a couple of videos and it goes through sort of each of the colors and the types of things that are associated with them. So remember, you can use all this for background for your design. So there's green. So but what would you associate with green? Peace was like being outside, life or growth, maybe something like that. So yeah. What about, let's do another color. What about purple? And you don't have to copy the things that are on the screen. I'm interested in hearing if somebody has mysterious. Very good. Knowledge. Excellent. Interesting. Let's see some white, purity, simplicity. You can see the color scheme on this website. Like it's all just whites and grays and sort of blues, black, maybe more formal. And you can go through this link. Here's a good example of the sustainability goals from the United Nations. And what they've done is they've sort of linked a color with each one of the 17 goals. And I think they've matched them sort of quite well as well, because there's a linkage with the color and maybe the area or the goal. So quite a good example. In summary, then color choice, super important. Follow the link, try and reference it in your design, because what we're trying to do is come up with a bunch of ways where we can really communicate that we've thought about our design and we've put some time into it in terms of all the choices we make. So any questions about colors or before we move on? All good? Cool. What is your favorite color? There's a question. What's your favorite color? If you had to pick a color. And there's no wrong answer. Blue, you like blue? Very good. Purple, I like purple as well. Interesting. White or green, very good. I suppose when we think of colors, we think of them almost in groups, don't we? We think of certain colors, going with other colors or, white or green. So very good. Just interesting. Accessibility. Do you understand what accessibility means? Because we want our color choices to be available and to accessible as many people as we can. And remember, we're going to our designs, or potentially they're going to be used by all different types of people. And you can have different people who have different needs. They might have problems seeing, they might have problems with moving, they might have problems hearing, and they might always also have problems learning. So the visual sort of problems might include long-sightedness, blindness, color blindness. Like I have a certain problem seeing now as I'm getting a bit older, so I wear my glasses. Designs must support screen readers, strong contrast, and color independent cues. So we're trying to make our design as accessible to somebody as possible. So if somebody has mobility issues, this could include difficulties with hands or arm movements, and we should consider how users with limited mobility, and remember, it could be a product, so we could have something, and if the product is too high or too tall, or like I'm wondering the last day, so we looked at these, you remember these screens we looked at? So how does it work? These screens, we've all used these, haven't you? You've seen these in McDonald's, or I don't know if Burger King have them. So what would happen here if somebody who is in a wheelchair wanted to order some food, but the options are up here? Who else might be impacted by this? Well, potentially the staff, but also kids. If, say, a child comes in and they're, I don't know, with their friends and they're ordering from these sort of machines, what happens when the options, somebody who's not very tall? So I'm wondering, is there anything in the design here that can accommodate users of different heights? So I'm wondering, do they have, I've never noticed, maybe there are machines that are slightly, maybe it can be used audio potentially. It's a pretty busy environment though, so audio might be difficult. I'm wondering if there is a machine for people who might not be able. I think the most sensible thing would be just to have a lower machine, wouldn't it? Rather than having a new sort of interface. It could be used to deter kids from eating unhealthy food, but I don't think McDonald's are going to do that. So something there as basic as screen height, could be an issue for somebody who is in a wheelchair. Auditory accessibility, so interfaces or designs, they shouldn't rely on audio alone. And so what I'm talking about are transcriptions and captions and those type of things, because if you have difficulty hearing, and then the last point, learning and cognitive differences, because different people learn different ways and at different speeds, and it might impact how people understand, process, or navigate the content. So if your website was overly complicated, somebody might struggle to use it. But in general, in particular in design, simplicity is good. So really, all these stack up, and again, something for you guys to talk about in your designs. So we want the designs to be inclusive, and here are some practical ways. So, does anyone in this group have any form of color blindness? So, can everyone see these? You can. So, now, if you had color blindness, they would appear more like this. So, the suggestion is differentiate between them and maybe just have one of the boxes highlighted as opposed to both boxes in slightly different colors. So here's some practical ways. And again, you can write about these. You will get a bunch of online resources if you type in accessibility, inclusive design, those type of things, using alt text for images. So when you go to a website, sometimes people use a screen reader, and that's a device that allows them to navigate the website in a sort of a non-visual way. So when they encounter a picture on the website, what they need is a short description of the picture. You need to choose the colors carefully. Color blindness is relatively common, and use high contrast and avoid relying on color alone for meaning. So, for example, you could say, click the red button could be rephrased as click the circular button. So what you're doing then is you're linking it to a shape rather than a color to support the user's navigation. Design forms by labeling each field clearly, and you can use tags again to support the readers and ensure the tab order follows the visual flow. You can also support keyboard navigation. So you know the way you can move around a website using a tab key. Say I am on this website. Can I tab? See the way I'm moving? So I'm moving from section to section on this. You'll see that quite a lot because what they've done is they've included that feature. Does that work on, if I start tabbing now? See the box moving? So it's allowing me, so if I go tab, tab, I'm not sure how I do a back tab, and shift. So I'm turning on sort of accessibility setting. I did a shift tab, and then it jumped. So I'm still moving. And if I hit return, see what it's doing? So it's allowing me, you see it a lot in web forms. So this would be, say, a form, and you see the way. So if I go to the end, let's just load that again. And these are all features that people have come to expect. So I would type in my text in the first field, I go to the second field, I go blah, blah, blah at blah, blah, blah. I go to this one, I want a sales inquiry, and then I go to my comment. Then I go next, and then I go kind of submit or whatever. So these are all really good ways of designing in an inclusive way. Again, you could use this. You'll likely have a contact form on the design that you create. So most websites have a contact form similar to the form we just looked at. And you can type in, you can have an option where people can just tab through the fields to fill it out. You can also offer transcripts for audio and captions for video. So that means then if somebody has difficulty hearing, it helps them, but it actually improves the clarity for all people. So any questions around inclusive design or accessibility before we move on? It just allows you to, with a little bit of work, to bring your design to just a wider audience. And please reference it in your assignment. Say that you've considered it. Next topic or next section, I'm going to talk about feature prioritization. One of the challenges when you're designing is that you're always poor on time. So what feature prioritization does is it allows you to decide what matters the most, and it helps you to focus on what's going to bring the greatest value to the users or the business. It's a key part of product or project management and UX design, and it supports better decisions by balancing three factors: the customer value, the business goals, and the technical feasibility. So when done right, prioritization can help you ensure that you're delivering the right features at the right time. And it helps to reduce wasted effort. It helps you avoid fuzzy products, and it helps your team to stay focused on shared goals. And there's different techniques that you can use for prioritization that teams involved in UX use. So we're going to look at a few of them now. Do you understand what this word means? Prioritization. So prioritization is when you decide the importance or the urgency of a task. So it's like you think about, should I do this now? Should I do this soon? Or will I do this later? And you say, is it going to be important to do this now? So you're ranking the importance of the task, because remember, when you're building something, you probably just have so many choices to make. And this maybe helps you work through them again in a systemized way using sort of frameworks that are pretty common within the industry. So prioritization, it offers lots of benefits. It helps to improve decision clarity. It supports resource planning. It aligns the work you're doing with maybe broader goals. It can help improve user satisfaction, and it can help keep your project on track and to prevent what they call creep. So scope creep is when the product or the design just keeps building and building, and it gets to a point where you can't actually manage the work. It's happened to me a few times on different projects, and you're dealing with users and they just keep asking for more and more and more features, and it's dangerous for a project because you're sort of torn. You want to help the user or the business, but at some point you do need to say no to them as well. And prioritization can help you do that, and it helps you have those conversations with them. Ultimately, prioritization supports delivery, and this can help speed up the learning that needs to happen as part of the design process, and also these iterative cycles. So you remember that word again, where we're going in this circle, and it's that circle of improvement. So lots of benefits to prioritization. Important to know how to do it. So let's look at a couple of different ways. So the first one we'll look at is called the impact versus effort matrix. So along this side, you have the potential impact. Down here is low, up here is high. On this axis, the x-axis, you have the effort, which is high effort here and low effort here. If we're doing some work, where should we start in this? Which quadrant should we start in?
Purple.
Try again. So look at the colors. The colors will help you. So we want low effort and high impact. So where does that take us? In what color?
Big bets.
Over here, up into the top corner. So low effort, not much to do, big impact. Sounds good to me. Where do we want to avoid?
Purple.
Tons of effort, low impact. Sounds like a money pit. We're just going to pour money into this. It's going to kill us. So the plot introduces two key factors: impact, which is the benefit or the value to the users, high impact, low impact, and effort, the time, the complexity, or the cost to implement. High effort, low effort. So this is a common method used in Agile, in UX, in design thinking, and it helps teams to decide where to focus their efforts. So features are placed into four quadrants based on their position in the matrix. So quick wins, which are high impact and low effort, and these prioritize these first as they add value quickly. Start here. Think, is this thing that we want to do? How would we rank it in terms of effort? How much effort are we going to have to put in here in terms of time, in terms of complexity? Will this have a big impact? Maybe something will, and you say, actually, we can do this pretty easily, but it's going to bring real value to the users. So we try and start here. The next one, big bets. These are high impact, but high effort. We need to going to work. It's going to be really good, but we're going to have to work really hard on this. The next one, money pits. So they've low impact and high effort. Low impact, high effort. And then the last one, the fill-ins. These are easy to do, but they might not be worth it. Low effort, low impact. So you see the way we can start to categorize our potential features or our tasks. The next method, the Moscow method, and it's a way of grouping. So you'll be asked to maybe look at a prioritization method and talk about it. With Moscow, you set up a kind of a quadrant system: must, should, could, won't. And it could be something like this, or you can have it different ways. And you break the tasks into four simple categories: your must-have categories, your should have, your could have, your will not. So you've got your letters. If you look at the capital letters, M, S, C, W, M, S, C, W. So your must-haves, these are essential requirements, and without them, the product will just fall over or simply fail. They form the basis of a minimal viable product. That's a product with just a baseline functionality that you can ship, right? An example here could include a very, fundamental feature like basic login functionality. So the user needs to log in somewhere in the website, or there's a user area. So that's a must-have feature. They have to have a space where they can put in their username and password to gain access to the system. Your should have features, these are important, but they're not vital, not in the same way that this is. Your could have features, these are desirable features. They're nice to have and they enhance the experience. Examples here could be your website could, or your application or interface, customizable themes and that sort of stuff. You won't have, and these are agreed exclusions. So remember, you would revisit this constantly and you would say, well, we're going to exclude this for now, but we're going to maybe revisit this later. And what you actually do is you keep the post-it where the thing is on. So these are all features. And you've come in with your team at the start of the week and you've worked out, or the start of the month, and you've gone must, should, could, won't. And you've said, look, we'll park these for now. We're going to start here. We're going to really focus on user value and try and work out where all these features should be placed. So it helps as well the teams and the stakeholders to define what success can look like. And it also allows you to come up with a plan and a way to sort of prioritize and work through the work. It helps you keep a focus on user value because you're constantly focusing on the must-haves, and they're maybe less important than the should or coulds. And while they could, you might get to them in time because they enhance the experience, they won't delay your delivery. So it gives you a good platform to talk to all the people involved in the project because it's a great exercise. Let's write down all the features, we have them as post-its, we stick them on the wall, and now we need to prioritize them in one of the four categories. So it supports agile delivery because these won'ts, you can just keep them outside the board for now, and eventually the won'ts would make it in here somewhere, in the future, in future iterations. This can also be used to improve personal productivity. If you have a bunch of things to do, you can categorize them using this system. So the Moscow method, it's quite a famous method. So then just moving on to the last method, and remember we're talking all the while about prioritization and how to come up with a way to get through the work. And we have this one, desirability, viability, feasibility, and it's known as DVF. And I suppose you have this overlap of the three, and this is the sort of the area you want to end up in. So it's an approach that was developed in the early 2000s, and it helps to decide if an idea is worth developing. And it looks at three things. Do the people want it, or will people want it? That's the desirability. Can we build it? If you're not able to build something, you can't ship it. Will it be profitable, or will this actually break the business? Are we going to spend so much time building this thing that the entire business will just come to a halt and we'll have to close down? Why should we use it? Many good ideas fail, not because they're bad, but because they ignore one of the areas in here. So you need, for a good product, you need all three things. People have to want it. You need to be able to build it, and it has to be profitable, or else the business just shuts down over time. So a product might be loved by users, but it could be too costly to build. And it might be profitable in some ways, but that could be initially because it might not solve a real user problem. So when should you use it? You can use DVF during product or feature design. And really, before you invest a lot of money and time in building something, it helps you to reduce risk, avoid wasted effort, and make smarter decisions. So let's just look at what each of the three can involve. And we'll use this example of a fitness app. So desirability asks whether real users want or need what you're creating. So if the product doesn't meet a need, it would struggle no matter how well it functions. So in a fitness app, enhanced desirability might involve gamification to boost motivation. So that would be a pretty important or also pretty common sort of, do you know what gamification is? Where you get points and there's kind of typical elements of a game, competition with others, rules of play, all this kind of stuff. So you can imagine somebody's on this fitness app, but they can also see what the other people are sort of doing, how their performance is, and it sort of keeps them involved because you're in a community. It's one of the way social media works. You can get badges, you can track progress visually, you can share milestones, all those type of things. You see people, they go for a run or whatever with a fitness tracker and they post up their times and stuff on social media. So these features, they make the app or the platform more engaging, more desirable. So how you research desirability is through user interviews, surveys, testing, and you want to see if people feel supported or excited or empowered or something by your product or your creation. So you need to establish desirability. What features do we need to make this desirable to people? Will people want it? Because if nobody wants it, it's going to fall over on us. The next one we look at then is feasibility. So this examines if we have the time, if we have the tools, if we have the resources, the know-how to develop the product. So now we could have a very desirable product, but if we can't build it, if it's too complicated or it's going to take too long, it's not feasible for us as a design team. Using the example again of the fitness app, Feasibility might mean using third-party tools for gamification elements. So if we couldn't build out these features for the boards and all that, we might need to get somebody to help us do that. Another approach is launching one of these, the minimal viable product. We mention this quite a lot, and that's you start with a reduced feature set, the most fundamental bare bones setup you can ship at that particular time. Feasibility also considers the impact that the plan will have on the organization, and it looks at some of the operational things like who will support it, who will market. Is our internal teams ready for this now? And by checking the feasibility early, the teams and the business, you can avoid over-promising and under-delivering. And then just quickly, the last slide, because we're just coming up on time now. The viability is, it's the profitability. Does this make sense? It can be a very desirable product, but if we struggle to build it or it's too expensive, so if it can't be, sustained over time or supported over time by the business, then it's not going to work as a venture. So you're talking about profitability, the long-term sustainability of the idea, and those type of things. And the business needs to act. What will this cost to build and run? How will we make money in terms of revenue? Is this scalable? So these three things, they all factor in here. So before going off on a design, you need to consider them. So these are all just different ways of looking at the problem of the design. And look, unless you have any questions, I will cap it there, guys. No questions. I will send both batches of slides across to the college and you'll grab them, start going through your notes now, maybe go in and do a little bit of Googling and start thinking about how you're going to put the assignment together. Really, it's based on all the things we've been looking for. So go look at some reputable websites around these type of things. So you'll have lots of examples. Don't just pull the text for your answers straight from the slides, or else everyone will say the same thing. So that wouldn't be good. Take care. Bye bye.
Thank you.